බිස්කට් වේදිකාවට දැන් පැමිණි සීඝ්‍රගාමී රසේ මංචි පොටේටෝ ක්‍රැකර්. බිස්කට් වේදිකාවට දැන් පැමිණි සීඝ්‍රගාමී රසේ මංචි පොටේටෝ ක්‍රැකර්.
Making headlines first at 9. Parliament enacts new legislation. Foreign exchange bill passed repealing Exchange Control Act.
First at 9. This is Derana 24/7.
Also making headlines tonight, green light for Chinese deal. Cabinet of Ministers approves agreement on Hambantota port. Debate on Friday. Bond Commission term extended. Gazette issued on Commission of Inquiry extension for another 3 months. Foreign Minister Ravi Karunanayake summoned tomorrow. Petroleum strike. Strike action by petroleum employees continue. Motorists kept in long queues. India's new president, 71-year-old Dalit politician NATH KOVIND, sworn in as the 14th president of India. Good evening, Mahesh Johnny for Derana 24/7. Tonight we begin with an update from the Parliament. The Foreign Exchange Bill was brought into legislation this evening with 96 parliamentarians voting in favour while 18 voting against it. The Foreign Exchange Act repeals and replaces the existing Exchange Control Act. The bill was enacted through electronic voting system which was implemented in the Sri Lankan Parliament for the first time.
President Maithripala Sirisena was present in Parliament throughout the debate on amendments to the country's foreign exchange laws.
Sri Lankan citizens resident in Sri Lanka can play a role in the development of the country. If you have foreign exchange belonging to them outside the country, even if they are not declared, to bring it in. Now we want them to bring it back into Sri Lanka. At the moment, our interest rates are higher than most other countries in which they are keeping their money. But many of them don't like to go through the exchange control procedure, nor to be labelled as a criminal. So what we have done is we have given a concession to Sri Lankans to make use of this opportunity. They can remit up to $1 million without having to pay a tax. Above that, you pay a remittance tax only. Just a remittance tax, remittance fee. Because we want the money in Sri Lanka for development. But we have excluded from this. So that doesn't come into it. Prevention, all money is coming under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, Convention on the Suppression of Terrorist Financing Act, or the Bribery Act.
The government today extended the term of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry to probe the controversial central bank bond issuance by a further 3 months via a Gazette notification. The Commission's report was due to be submitted on the 27th of July. Meanwhile, the Presidential Commission of Inquiry today also reissued notice to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ravi Karunanayake, to appear before the Commission tomorrow. He was the Minister of Finance during the time of the bond transaction of 2nd of February 2015.
President Maithripala Sirisena appointed the Commission of Inquiry to probe the controversial central bank bond issuance on the 27th of January this year. Although the President originally directed the Commission to submit a report within 3 months, it was extended until the 27th of July following a request by members of the Commission. Meanwhile, the Commission of Inquiry today reissued notice to the then Minister of Finance, Ravi Karunanayake, to appear before the Commission tomorrow. Although the Minister was due to appear before the Commission today following a notice issued on the 22nd of this month, attorneys representing the Minister yesterday informed the Commission that he will not be able to appear due to other commitments.
Meanwhile, the controversial central bank bond issue was a hotly discussed topic in Parliament today, with Minister Ravi Karunanayake stating that the allegations against him were an attempt of character assassination. The minister stated this in response to the name of the then Minister of Finance was brought up in connection with rental of a luxury home during yesterday's session of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry on the issue.
The coordination between our president and the guy who is in bribery and corruption that came out coming and speaking on a thing that Anika Vijayasuriya yesterday spoke is absolutely frivolous, as also it should say that there is a design in this character assassination. So, as you know, I've been summoned to the Presidential Commission of Inquiries on Central Bank bond issue to appear today. This was handed to me on Saturday, The Kurds didn't basically even afford an opportunity as a cabinet minister, that they didn't know that we were meeting for cabinet and they wanted us to come and meet on such and such a date. However, both the cabinet minister and more importantly, Parliament was scheduled to meet on this day. While I had absolutely no intention of disobeying or the summons issued by the Commission, I am so proud to be in this government where today senior cabinet minister called before Commission, even before the opposition, who have robbed this country for 11 years, reduced reserves into this country, and basically they are going scot-free. Yeah, so this is the sense of transparency our government mentioned.
We complained to the Bribery Commission on the bond issue. None of those complaints were taken up in court. I tabled a no-confidence motion against the former Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake, citing the lease of a house and the fact that Arjun Aloysius' company paid for it. Minister Karunanayake told me not to tell lies, warning that he will take legal action. The Prime Minister threatened to take us before the Privileges Committee. Ideally, the former Finance Minister must resign by now. In the coming days, more personalities in the government will have to come before the Commission.
Meanwhile, the central bank says a new primary issuance system for treasury bonds will be introduced on Thursday. The new system replaces the existing fully auction-based issuance system for treasury bonds that has been in place since February 2015. Issuing a statement, central bank said the main purpose of the new system is to enhance efficiency and transparency of government's domestic borrowings. Central bank said that a new performance review mechanism will be introduced additionally to assess the effective participation of primary dealers. In other local stories, the Hambantota Port concession agreement between Sri Lanka Ports Authority and China Merchants Holding Company Limited is to be tabled in Parliament tomorrow and will be debated on Friday. Speaking at a media briefing, Minister of Ports and Shipping Mahinda Samarasinghe announced that the decision comes after the relevant cabinet paper being approved by the President, Prime Minister and cabinet members today.
The port of Hambantota was constructed with an investment of around 193 billion rupees through commercial loans obtained by the government, with an annual loan repayment of 9.1 billion rupees by the Sri Lanka Ports Authority. The port, which commenced commercial operations in November 2011, accumulated a loss of over 46 billion rupees by the end of 2016. Minister of Ports and Shipping Mahinda Samarasinghe also told journalists that the agreement will be signed this Saturday and that it is a win-win situation for both the Chinese party and the government.
$1.12 billion US dollars.
We are to receive $1.12 billion US dollars from this agreement. Once this amount is transferred to the Treasury, then the responsibility of loan repayments will be borne by them. This will be a saving of 9.1 billion rupees to the Ports Authority. It was initially agreed to enter into an investment agreement of 80-20 split, but now we have agreed to a 70-30 split. This means 70% of the investment will be held by the Chinese company, while we hold the remaining 30%. We are not selling the port. Within 10 years, we will be able to purchase 20% of the harbour. In another 70 years, we will be able to obtain 100% ownership. The agreement also states that the operations of these two companies will come under the rules and regulations of the government.
Meanwhile, speaking at the Economic Summit, State Minister of Finance Eran Wickramaratne expressed the following views on the Hambantota agreement.
I do not agree with the investments in Hambantota. I think they were big mistakes, and we should not forget it. But the real question is, what do you make out of a mistake that has already been made? Our policy formulators and our politicians should have actually asked the question, 10 years ago, did we actually need that airport, or did we actually need a second runway at the international airport in Colombo? Those were the kinds of questions that were not addressed. But the question now is, as an economist, once those investments have been made, we need to make sure that we are able to get the maximum out of those buried investments. And therefore, we will have that deal signed very quickly.
In other headline stories, the island-wide strike launched by the Petroleum Trade Unions Collective at midnight is still underway. A strike severely inconvenienced the public, leaving queues of vehicles at fueling stations since last night.
Petroleum Trade Unions Collective launched the island-wide strike starting midnight based on 3 key demands. Among their demands are the transfer of the oil tank farm in Trincomalee to the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and the modernization and resumption of the Sapukaskanda oil refinery. Sri Lanka Nidahas Sevaka Sangame, Engineers Association and several other trade unions joined the strike. Employees of the CPC refrained from distributing oil in line with the strike action.
ප්‍රශ්නේදී රජයත් වැරදි වර්ජන කරන පිරිසත් වැරදි.
පොඩි මනසට අසාධාරණයක් වෙන්නේ.
අතේ තියෙන රුපියල් 300. දැන් මේකට ඇවිල්ලා ෆුල් ටැංක් ගා ගන්න ඕන.
Police officers were deployed to ensure security at fuel stations. Meanwhile, employees of the Kolonnawa oil terminal engaged in a protest this morning in support of the strike.
The government was given 3 months to solve this issue. If the Prime Minister with the newly appointed Minister of Ports arbitrarily plan to sell the oil tanks, we are ready to save these resources by any means. By tomorrow noon, Katunayaka Airport will also run out of aviation fuel. This strike is a 100% success. All the gates are closed and not a single Bowser leaves the premises.
In the meantime, a meeting was held between petroleum trade unions and the Secretary to the Ministry of Petroleum Resources Development, Upali Marasinghe, this evening. Earlier in the day, speaking to Derana, Upali Marasinghe said they will take measures to let the trade union collective meet the President, who is already informed of the issue.
The main suspect in the Nallur shooting, which claimed the life of a police sergeant, turned himself to the police this morning. The deceased sergeant was meanwhile posthumously promoted to the rank of sub-inspector today, with the Chief Minister of the Northern Province, C.V. Vigneshwaran, also paying his last respects.
A gunman opened fire at a vehicle of the High Court Judge M. Ilanjalian last Saturday. The police sergeant Sarath Premachandra, who was attached to Judge's security detail, was shot during the incident and died while receiving treatment at the Jaffna Hospital on Sunday. Despite the main suspect absconding, 2 suspects were arrested last Sunday. The main suspect was identified as 39-year-old Selvarasa Jayanthan. The incident was recorded on a CCTV. The remains of the deceased police sergeant is kept at his residence in Kumarakattuva in Chillau. Chief Minister of the Northern Province, C.V. Vigneshwaran, also paid his last respects today.
We are sad about the death. He must be a loyal police officer as he was with him for nearly 17 years. All my security officials are Sinhala people. There were Tamil police security officials too, but I was not satisfied with their duty and got rid of them. We trust the Sinhala officials and it cannot be explained.
Several protests were also worked off by civil organizations of Trincomalee and residents of Vaunia to express displeasure over the incident. Meanwhile, senior DIG Lalit Jayasinghe, who was arrested for aiding the escape of the chief suspect in the rape and murder of the schoolgirl Sivaloganathan Vidya, was further remanded till the 8th of August today after he was produced before the Kites Court. Producing a videotape to the court, the counsel representing senior DIG Jayasinghe informed court that the State Minister of the Child Affairs Vijay Kala Maheswaran also attempted to save the suspects, and the videotape is proof of it.
Welcome back, everyone. The 24-hour strike launched by the Government Medical Officers Association was suspended this afternoon. The strike was in protest of the attempted arrest of the convener of the Medical Faculty Students' Action Committee, Ryan Jala. It concluded following discussions with the Minister of Law and Order, Sagala Ratnayaka. The GMOA said that the Minister agreed to table a report in 2 weeks, citing reasons which caused the incident and action to be taken.
The GMOA today launched an island-wide strike from 8 this morning over 3 main reasons, including the attempt to arrest a medical student activist by using a white van, attempt to suppress the student movements and trade unions, and continuing to imprison students without filing charges. Patients from across the country who arrived at the government hospitals, however, were severely affected by the strike.
If the government cannot handle this situation, they should resign from power.
We looked upon the doctors like the gods, but at present they seem to be agents of death.
The strike, however, was not implemented in some of the hospitals. The Grade Medical Officers Union, however, did not support the strike. The strike, however, was suspended in the afternoon after a discussion held between the Minister of Law and Order Sagala Ratnayaka and members of the GMOA.
We had a discussion with Minister Sagala Ratnayaka. Honorable Minister agreed upon our 5 demands, which are basically the attempted abduction of Ryan Jailath and the student leaders who are in the prison at the moment, and the police behavior regarding the peaceful demonstrations. The Minister agreed to make a speech in the Parliament in this regard.
Moving on to business news now, Governor of Central Bank Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy warns that the mobilizing of resources for government debt servicing will be challenging in 2018, adding that debt situation should not be allowed to be worsened. He, however, expressed confidence that the current domestic and external debt is manageable. Dr. Kumaraswamy was addressing the inauguration of Sri Lanka Economic Summit 2017.
Organised by the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, the 2-day Sri Lanka Economic Summit was launched under the theme Execute, Transform, Realise. Speaking here, Central Bank Governor Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy pointed out that on the macroeconomic policy-making front, Sri Lanka has been subjected to a repeating cycle of stop-go policy.
You have a period where everything is go, the economy overheats, then you slam on brakes, and then you repeat this cycle again. And the main source of instability in the system has been the government budgetary operations. On the exchange rate, one thing we really need to do is to get away from the past practice of having an overvalued exchange rate. Export transformation is absolutely crucial for us to address our debt problem, for us to achieve 6, 7, 8, maybe % growth going forward. As far as debt management is concerned, there has been a peak in debt servicing this year, and there will be next year. Provided the fiscal consolidation process continues, in 2019 you will see some improvement. We've done most of the resource mobilization for the government for this year, but next year is going to be a challenging year in terms of mobilizing resources to service the debt. This is, I'm talking about domestic debt. So what we're trying to do as far as external debt is concerned is to do some liability management in the intervening couple of years before we get to 2019.
He went on to say that the government's major medium-term objectives are to contain the fiscal deficit to 3.5% of GDP and debt to GDP around 70% by 2020.
There is also some talk to revise the Fiscal Management Responsibility Act with mandatory binding targets for the government deficit and the level of overall government debt. For me, this would be a very important milestone. The central bank is introducing a flexible inflation targeting regime. We should complete the process maybe in another 9 to 12 months, but we are well advanced in putting the ingredients in place. What we are trying to do is to have a much more forward-looking, proactive monetary policy.
Stocks were lower after the close as losses in the chemical and pharmaceuticals, motors and telecom sectors led shares lower. At the close in Colombo, the CSE all-share lost 0.03% to hit a new month low. The turnover crossed 359 million rupees, with foreign purchasing accounting for 51.1% of turnover. Now here's a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other currencies during the day today. On to sports now. Sri Lankan Test skipper Ranganehrat states that the team is confident about tomorrow's match and it will be highly challenging to play the current #1 Test team. He made these remarks today while addressing a media briefing ahead of the 3-match test series against India set to start in Galle tomorrow. The two sides will also play 5 one-day internationals and 1 T20.
It's going to be an interesting and challenging series, of course. Chasing like 380 plus, it is not an easy task. So that confidence will help for the boys. Whatever happened recent past, it doesn't count. We are starting another new series, so we need to start well, especially the first game. I'm sure the boys are pretty confident with their performance. Of course, that's a big loss for us because as a captain, as a player, normally he gives his 100%. So we miss him, but I'm sure he will come back either second or third test.
A bit of swimming. Adam Peaty sliced more than 3/10 of a second off his own 50-meter breaststroke world record in the heats at the World Aquatic Championship today. Peaty swam 26.10 seconds in Hungary, eclipsing the 26.42 seconds he produced at the 2015 World Championships. He also dominated the 100-meter event last night by winning gold in 57.47 seconds. Moving on to international news now. NATH KOVIND was sworn in as the 14th President of India in New Delhi today in a ceremony that tightens the government's hold on positions of power. A 71-year-old low-caste Dalit politician backed by the ruling coalition led by the Bharatiya Janata Party easily won the presidential election last Thursday, beating the Congress Party's Meera Kumar. India's constitution provides a largely ceremonial role for the president, with the Prime Minister and his cabinet holding executive power. The president, however, plays a key role during political crises, such as when a general election is inconclusive, by deciding which party is in the best position to form a government. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte vowed to forge ahead with his controversial war on drugs, which has left thousands of people dead and has triggered an international outcry. The president made the assertion during his annual State of the Nation address, adding that no amount of criticism would deter him.
Despite international and local pressures, the fight will not stop until those who deal in it understand that they have to stop.
Meanwhile, around 7,000 people joined in a protest demanding peace talks and economic reforms. Rights groups allege that Duterte's crackdown on drugs has targeted drug users from poor communities and left narcotics kingpins untouched.
Well, time now to get the latest on the weather, and for that let's cross over to Katharina Chang at the Other Derana Weather Centre.
The island is set for a warm night with temperatures forecasted expected to be between 23 to 37 degrees Celsius over the next 24 hours. The formation of a low pressure zone in the southwest region of the island is gradually to recede. However, thunder showers can be expected in cities of Trincomalee, Anuradhapura and Batticaloa, with intermittent showers in cities of Puttalam and Vavuniya. Wet weather will also extend in the western and central part of the country as well as in the Sabaragama province. It's time to take a look at the city-by-city forecast.
And that is a part of your world tonight right here on Other Derana 24/7. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mahesh Johnny. And before we go, we'd like to leave you with visuals of Hunnas Falls, a picturesque tourist destination in the Mathali district. Standing about 125 feet high, this waterfall springs from the Hunnasgiri peak, the forest-covered mountain which overlooks the tranquil green landscape. Once again, thank you for joining us. Good night.
Information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.